Yeah, so I guess just to get started, let everybody know who you are, what you do, you know.
My name is Rafael Marte, and I am a tattoo artist, a professional tattoo artist. I work in New York since 2005. I'm currently a resident artist at Hard Knocks Tattoo in Yonkers, and I do illustrative tattoos. They have like a little bit of realism in the sense that they're highly detailed and they have like light sources in the right place and all that, shadowings and all that. But I still add graphic elements to my tattoos.
Yeah,
So that's the type of style of tattoos that I do.
definitely. Yeah. And you can check them out. You want to just state your Instagram real quick?
So I have a new Instagram page that I started. It's all custom art tattoos.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So I mean, obviously tattooing for close to 20 years now, right?
Yeah, pretty much close to 20 years. I moved to New York in 2005, and I would consider that's when I professionally started tattooing because that's when I got my license, and that's when I actually started working in shops.
Right.
Before that, I was still practicing and learning.
So like just as an artist, like, developing, practicing, getting into tattooing, what were some of your inspirations, like I guess both as an artist and as a tattooer, were they different? Were they the same? Who were they?
For my inspiration in art, I've always liked surrealist artists. My favorite being Salvador Dali.
Mm,
And when I got into tattooing and really diving deep into that world, there were a lot of big names back in those days, like Philip Liu. He was doing bodysuits, Horiyoshi the Third, who's still tattooing, and he's an elderly person now,
yeah. I
and
think I've heard of that. He's like almost 100, right? Or something like
he's up there. I don't want to say. I want to say he's definitely over 70.
that? Yeah.
Definitely over 70
Okay.
because when I was coming up, I think he was still in his 60s or something. He was already
Right, right.
he's like a third generation tattooer.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I'm not sure if I'm thinking the same person, but I remember seeing a while ago. I think the person that I saw in the video, he was close to 100 years old, and he was still doing like the tabori, right?
Oh,
Like
okay.
he was like
Yeah.
actually doing like
Yeah.
the hand with like the stick and hammer kind of
Did you see a video
style.
of a man or an elderly
I
woman?
believe I believe it was a man. It
Okay.
was a while ago, but yeah, I remember I saw that, and I was just so amazed by how he was still able to do that. And
Yeah. The artist I'm talking about is a Japanese artist. He does full
full body. Okay.
traditional bodysuits and yeah, even nowadays because over there they sit on the floor
Right.
and it's really tough to think about tattooing that
Yeah.
long with your back hunched for
Yeah.
so long.
Well, it's definitely like I feel like, especially with more traditional artists, there is more of a ceremony to it, more of like a tradition like that, where I guess, as opposed to today, where I mean, there's still obviously many elements involved in a tattoo, but it is more so just tattooing and just going through the tattoo process versus like actually having that
Yeah,
ceremony.
because nowadays it's a lot more accessible. And what that means is that before, tattooing was a lot more secretive because it wasn't such a big industry. Now the industry is humongous and you have companies that make all sorts of products. So anything that you think you might need for applying a tattoo, you can most likely find it, or you can find a couple things that you can put together to make exactly what you need.
Right.
Before, it was all like passed down knowledge. There wasn't really a big market that sold tattoo supplies and things like that, so only a few sources to get what you needed. And I think that when things are more difficult, you kind of tend to respect them
Right.
more. You treat
Well,
them
it
differently.
was I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more of like a subculture originally, right? Where it wasn't as mainstream as popular today, and even in some places, it was illegal, right?
Yeah, and this I'm just speaking from what I know, but even before when you talk about like ancient Japan, they use tattoos as a form of kind of marking criminals.
Right.
So it already had like a negative stigma from that. And then when people started to get tattoos for other reasons than because you were locked up and you were symbolized for the crime that you did or whatever, when people started getting them to represent like their trade, like carpenters and fire fighters and things like that,
Yeah.
when those people started getting tattoos to represent who they were, they still had to have them hidden because of that stigma.
Right.
And then it was, kind of like that old adage, tattoos are for hookers and sailors, and
Right.
you tend to like think that it's more involved with like people that are not doing good things.
Right. But I think that's definitely starting to change. It's not, I mean, obviously I'd agree there's still some stigma towards tattoos.
Hmm.
Um but I would definitely say today more, like, many times more accepting of people with tattoos.
Way more
Yeah.
accepting, way more accepting. It's so normal now.
Yeah. Right.
Even before, like people that would never get a tattoo because of what their parents would do or say or think.
Right.
Now their parents are getting tattooed. Those same parents
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Definitely.
excuse me.
No, yeah, you're
There
fine.
you go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's definitely, like I said, more accepting, and but also with that, like you mentioned before, as things become more accepting, more mainstream, things become more accessible. Obviously, that has its benefits, but then you also do run into kind of the issue of the accessibility being so easy that some people are able to just like get a machine off of Amazon and start tattooing people and not necessarily going through the proper steps um, of training. So what do you think about that? Like when people having people learn through the traditional method of apprenticeship to actually train, or what are your thoughts on people like self-taught and picking up themselves?
So there's nothing wrong with being self-taught because even nowadays there are amazing artists that are big names in the tattoo industry, and they're self-taught. And it could be because for many reasons, for whatever reasons. But what I think the negative of that, of it being so accessible nowadays, is that I feel like there could be an element of people just trying tattooing. Uh
So they're
and
not so they're not like in it for the art. They're just, it's something to do.
it could be something that they think is cool. It could be almost like being a musician and being in a band, that some people do it more for the fame
Right.
and the popularity or the perks that come with being in a band than for the actual creative process of making music.
Right. Right.
So, what I'm worried about is people just saying, oh, I know how to draw. Yeah, maybe I'll just try tattooing. And then they try it not through the right avenues like you mentioned before. They just and this is very difficult because you're not just drawing on something that's static and that doesn't change. Once you do a tattoo, the tattoo changes with your body over time, so that's why people only do a certain amount of detail in certain tattoos to they think about the longevity, how the tattoo is going to look 10 years down the line, you know what I mean? And you're not really thinking in those terms if you're just dipping your toes or trying something because you think it's cool.
Right.
Now, that's just what my perspective is. Who knows what the intentions of these people are, but time will tell because you're not going to survive as a
They kind of
tattooer.
weed themselves out,
Yeah,
right? Like
they're
if
they're eventually going to fall
Right.
off.
I would definitely say, just from my experience, knowing tattoo artists, and I mean, obviously, I've never tattooed myself, but just working at a tattoo shop and having that experience, like I can see how difficult it is to actually be a successful professional tattoo artist. So I definitely agree with what you're saying there in terms of like they do kind of overall they will weed themselves out.
Yeah.
But then occasionally you do run into that one person who can do it cheaper, and
Oh yeah.
you get your scratchers and people who aren't necessarily as thoughtful about the quality and the consistency of their tattoos.
Definitely.
Right.
And I think also that the clientele has a responsibility in doing research
Right.
too. If you're just gonna go and get tattooed by someone just because you heard that they could do it cheaply for you, or something like that,
Yeah.
then I don't know. Then that's the ticket you bought, and you got to take that
Right.
ride, I guess.
I definitely agree with that. And that makes me think. I just saw the other day on TikTok. Actually, there's this artist. I don't know if I want to say her name. She's getting ripped apart on TikTok because
Mhm.
she's doing these blindfold tattoos.
She's
Um,
tattooing blindfolded.
she no no no, she's not blindfolded, but the client is. So
Oh,
the
okay.
idea is that it's like a mystery tattoo. She gets to create whatever, and it's $100, and
Hmm.
you get what you get. Kind of.
Okay.
You can write down three subjects that you want,
Hmm.
and she can pick one of the three or combine them. But it like ultimately the client doesn't have any say in what they're doing. Which that's not even the part that she's getting kind of called out for. It's just the fact that her tattoos aren't good.
Oh,
You
okay.
know,
They
they're
don't look.
very blown out. They're
Hmm.
not consistent. She has instances where she's got some tattoos that are very symmetrical, and she's
Hmm.
missing some of the line work and details on one side and not on that she did on the other.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is very interesting to me though, because when I was watching that, I was looking in her comments, and there were people in her comments that were even saying like, "This tattoo is so good, like this looks amazing." And just to your point about clients like doing the research and picking it out, I think some people don't know like what a good tattoo is just from either lack of exposure to it, or just maybe they don't have that eye for detail too. So like if you could recommend a couple things for people, who might be looking to get tattooed, what would you say people should look for in an artist? Um, both from a technical standpoint and then maybe other factors as well.
So the first thing that I would recommend is choose an artist based off of the type of artwork that you want to get. So, a lot of times people get tattooed by one artist, and they feel like if they go to somebody else that it's going to make their artist mad, or they won't be able to come back to that person because they'll be mad or something like that. But if you're working with a professional that does something and specializes in something, because
Like a style.
yeah, when you're working with somebody that does a style, and you bring them something that's not in their wheelhouse, ethically, I mean, unless they want to start expanding into that style as well, but ethically they should be like, hey, listen, um I can do this for you and it'll come out fine. You are not going to get a bad tattoo. But for this style, I think that this person could do a
Right.
much better job,
Right.
So
So I guess you could maybe, I mean, it's not a one for one comparison, but you could compare it to, I guess, something like you wouldn't ask your mechanic to do like plumbing.
exactly.
Like
Yeah,
it's a different skill set in a sense of, I mean, it's more stylistic. It's not necessarily as cut and dry like technical, but there is also technical aspects to that style that
definitely. Because
you want.
and what leads to that is some artists' interest. Like, let's say you want to get a dark art style tattoo, you want to get skulls, dark imagery, something sinister looking. And the artist that normally does all your tattoos does very bright stuff, and that's all their portfolio is about. I'm sure that they can do, like they can look at a dark art style tattoo and make something for you based off of that. But if that naturally doesn't come out of them, I would just take that project to somebody
Right.
that I see fits more that style. So that would be the first thing: is do your research as a person getting a tattoo. Do your research and think about what it is that you're trying to do with your tattoo. Do you want something meaningful? Do you want something that's more like ornamental? The meaning isn't really what you're looking for, but something that looks like the way that you want. Then
Mhm.
that's what you should do: is your research, check out what type of artwork your artist does, and then from there, look at the quality of the work.
Right.
Definitely look at the
And
quality.
then for like I guess like a novice perspective from somebody who doesn't necessarily know artwork as well.
Mhm.
Um, when you as a client, when you're looking at an artist's work, like what are some things that you would recommend that they look at? Tech like I mean, obviously you can't go too technical because they don't know the technical aspects of the tattoo, but just visually, like what are some things that they should be looking for?
Well, if you look at a tattoo portfolio and the photos look like the tattoos are already healed, that would be a really good sign because that artist is showing you how that tattoo is going to look after it's settled onto your skin. So that would be a very good sign. Um look at to see if again if it's the style that you're looking for.
Right.
Because if it's not the style that you're looking for, this person will kind of like force
Mm.
whatever it is that you want, and it might not come out as good as it should. Look for little things like blowouts and things of that nature. Try to see,
So that would be like the thickness of the lines and the line work. Is it consistently one like thickness essentially at throughout the tattoo or in a spot?
yeah, like if you see obvious things like wiggly lines and things like that,
Right.
that's kind of like something that'll stand out. But also nowadays people are editing pictures and things like that.
Right.
So if something looks too bright, if it
Right.
looks too filtered, like you
And
should,
like high contrast, like super high contrast where it's like super
yeah,
black and then super white.
yeah, definitely. You should definitely talk to your artist too, and you kind of like explain to them what you want, and also you see,
Right.
the feedback that they give you if that's somebody that you're comfortable working with.
Right, definitely. So yeah, I mean, I think, we've talked a little bit about the art side of tattooing. Um, and I wanted obviously this is a business podcast primarily.
Hmm.
So I do want to kind of get into some of the business elements of tattooing.
Hmm.
Specifically, I guess, we talked about clients introduction of the internet and social media and all of that and how that has affected how artists act, right? So like
Hmm.
how would you say that you balance being an artist and being like a businessman? Because I think in a sense like it is kind of they go hand in hand, especially
Yeah,
today, unless you're like some giant artist who has a manager or something. Like
yeah,
for most artists, you are your manager, you are the tattooer, you're your booking agent, all of
yeah.
that. So how do you
It's
manage that?
it's like the DIY era nowadays. You just have to manage your time. You know, if you manage your time, if you try to set a schedule, things go so much more smoothly.
Right.
I always try to do things. I mean, before I started, setting schedules and allotting a certain amount of time for certain things, you kind of waste a lot of time when you just do things willy-nilly, per se, when you're just kind of like sitting there and you're like, oh, I'll check some emails, and then you start answering emails, you put your phone down, and then you get a response, and then you're kind of like paying attention to that, or me at least, and then instead of just allotting a certain time of my day for doing that specifically, and then instead of just answering emails as they randomly come up and I'm like in the middle of doing something else and then I am interrupted to go answer that email, I'm kind of like breaking up my flow,
Right.
when I'm doing my other activities. So if you schedule your day, that just doing that makes an immense amount of impact on your productivity and your efficiency.
Right. So just a lot of time management, I guess you
Yeah,
could
time
say,
management.
because I mean, I agree. You are switching between two tasks, scheduling and actually tattooing. It's hard to balance.
Yeah.
Um, I want to kind of go a little bit deeper into like the back end of the industry in terms of like shops, shop dynamics, things like that.
Hmm.
I know that just from my experience, there's different types of shops. Some work on commission bases, whatever, and some do booth rentals. So how would you say you approach those elements? Like, what do you think? I know for you, you probably think the booth rental is best for you. Like, what do you think of those two models of like business and tattooing?
So, they're two totally different things. Let's go with the percentage-based commission style shop.
Right.
Um, if I am working in that type of situation, I'm expecting it to be a busy location, where people are generally going to be coming in, and then I'm going to be focusing on doing the best tattoos possible. Also, you're going to keep promoting yourself independently, because no matter where you're working as an artist, that's what you're doing. You're always promoting yourself independently.
Yeah.
But uh, I personally work in the latter, which is a booth rental, where I pay rent for the space that I work in at the shop, and that's pretty much it. That's all I have to worry about. I like that because it just gives me so much freedom.
Right.
I literally have uh, all control of every minute of my day.
Right.
I don't have to report and be somewhere. And because the problem is that, let's say, if you're working at a shop where they're paying you by a percentage, you most likely have a schedule that you have to be there because they have shop hours. And if you're not going to be there, then you're not going to be making money.
Right.
So, as uh, a booth rental, you have a lot more responsibility, though, because you have to make sure that you keep that clientele flow coming in.
Right.
But I think that the risks outweigh, I mean, the benefits outweigh the risks in that situation, because if you manage your money properly and you're doing good work and you charge a decent amount, then you don't really have to work that much because you're keeping everything.
Right. So it's more so balance. I think just to explain to some people who like have no clue about kind of what we're talking about, just to break it down really quick, you kind of mentioned it. There's basically two styles of shops.
Hmm.
Essentially, one shop would be the commission basis that we talked about, where essentially the artist and the shop split all of the money that comes in. So if you did a tattoo for $100, let's just say,
Hmm.
you would get 60 or 70 of those dollars, and the shop would get 30, $40,
Hmm.
whatever the percentages of the breakdown. And then the second, like you mentioned, the model that you are working in right now is booth rental, where you essentially pay like rent every month for a station within a shop. So you pay a set price, let's say like $1,000,
Hmm.
and then you get to keep everything that you make that month.
Yeah.
You're just paying for the space. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to like just
Yeah.
clarify that, just in case that wasn't clear. You did explain it. I just wanted to just reiterate that. But I think I definitely agree with what you were saying in terms of the the different elements of working in those two environments. I would say just from what I've seen, it's definitely true that you have more freedom because I mean you're not so like a lot of these shops run as independent contractors, or the artists within the shop run as independent contractors.
Yeah.
So technically, you're not bound to any schedule. Like you can't be forced to come in at any time. Um, but like you said, if you want to make money and you want to take advantage of being in a shop that does commission basis and is advertising and promoting the artists, you want to be in there during the hours of business because
Yeah.
that's when you get walk-ins, and
Exactly.
that's where you make money, you fill in gaps in your schedule,
Hmm.
um, and you have a more steady flow of income. But like you said, definitely more freedom involved, right? So
Yeah.
I think part of that is something that I was trying to, or I'm still wondering about from your perspective too. Um, as somebody who is a tattoo artist, primarily an artist first, I would say, before business person,
Yes,
but
definitely.
but both. You still have two hats you got to wear, but primarily an artist. How would you say you tend to value time and freedom over, I guess, money, essentially?
So I'm not. It depends on your personality, because I'm very happy with the lifestyle that I have. I'm able to travel. I'm able to eat the food that I like. I'm able to have other hobbies outside of art. I have motorcycles, as you know,
Yep.
and I enjoy that. And I spend some money on, upgrading my motorcycle and things like that. So, uh, for me, For everything that I do, I feel like the amount of time that I work and what I get back from it is great, you know. So it really depends on what your lifestyle and what your goals are. I pretty much have my goals are I want to be able to live comfortably. And as I'm getting older, I should have started thinking about it a little before, but I'm now starting thinking to think about my future retirement and things
Right.
like that. So that's another thing that you should start thinking about ASAP so that you can still live the way you want, but start accommodating for the future.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I do at the end, I kind of want to talk about a little bit about your future and like your future plans. But before we get to that, I definitely want to talk about just some more things relating to the tattoo industry, the business aspect of it. How would you say, what is like one notable change that you've seen in the tattoo industry since you started? Um, has there been any significant changes business wise? It could be, anything from like uh, the actual financing of tattooing to like just the way you conduct business in terms of
Oh,
I don't know anything.
it's been totally different. I mean, when I moved to New York in 2005, I started working in the West Village and at a commission-based shop, and it was, it was normal. Like the client would come in, you pay. Back in those days, it was rare the places that you could pay debit card or a credit card
Yeah,
for a tattoo. So you would normally pay cash, and a lot of times when you're getting paid cash, you tend to be more irresponsible, and you don't tend to, do the proper things like filing your taxes and things like that. So over time, the thing that I've seen that has changed the most is that artists are being more conscious about business related things, especially since now, as you were mentioning before, there's the internet has made tattooing a lot more accessible, so a lot more people are tattooing. And I think that people that have different backgrounds in other things are getting into tattooing. So people that have business backgrounds or people that have studied things like that are coming into tattooing and making other tattooers aware of that. So I think that's a great thing. Nowadays, there's also a lot more independent artists doing their own things. A lot more, I guess you would call them private studios or I guess like think tank type of
people
tattoo
opening their own
shops. Yeah,
their own shop.
and also artists getting together and opening up a shop because they didn't like how the model was being run where they were working
Right.
before. So they start to do their own thing and make new paths for the business.
So like back in the day, I guess would you say it was more so like there was a guy, maybe he tattooed, maybe he didn't tattoo, that would open up a studio or a tattoo shop, right? And then they would hire artists. And now you're saying that that's kind of changed where the artists are taking it on themselves to create their own spaces.
There's still a lot of people that don't tattoo at all that are opening shops, but I feel like nowadays artists are becoming more business minded and it's becoming a little bit more artist driven
Right.
than some outsider driven, I guess you could say.
Would you say that's a like a net benefit or a net negative? Like, what do you think about artists? Obviously, it's great to be versatile and to be able to kind of take control of your own business and have that uh, control.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, do you think it's like a net negative for the artist as a creative person, or is it something that's just kind of
No,
the same?
if no, no, if anything, it's a positive to
Okay.
add another skill set,
Right.
because it's very easy to get just obsessed with doing one thing, and this world doesn't work that way. The
Right.
more you know, the better you're gonna get along. So I think it's definitely a positive that artists are I guess taking the reins, you can say,
Yeah.
of the industry, because now it's like it's more artists working for artists for other artists instead of people that have, they have tattoos, but they don't do tattoos telling tattooers what to do.
Right.
And why aren't you finishing this fast enough? Why, what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
It's like, if you don't even do this, why are you trying to
Right.
tell me how to do it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think, I've been, I've seen and I've heard stories about similar things like that. And obviously, we've talked about stuff like that in the past.
Hmm.
So it is interesting to see kind of that dynamic shift from artists kind of becoming, from just strictly just being creative people to also now going into the realm of business and taking things upon themselves to, further their careers, professionally too.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess another thing, we kind of talked about like the business aspect of it changing, like the actual structure of how tattooing has changed. How would you say technology in tattooing has kind of evolved and, either for the better or the worse? What are your thoughts on technology?
Everything I think is changing for the better.
Okay.
Because technology wise, nowadays, uh, I can travel to Europe with pretty much a carry-on that has clothing, and I could take another carry-on that has everything that I need to tattoo for the week. And if I compress it enough, I could probably,
Fit into one.
take fewer clothes and a little fewer supplies, and I could fit everything
Right.
into one suitcase. As opposed to before, where you would have like stainless steel tubes, for example, that you have to sterilize, in between uses, and the place that you're gonna go tattoo needs to have a sterilizer. So now it's just, you can. Yeah, I know you've seen it on the internet. You've seen people tattooing on a mountaintop,
Yeah. Yeah.
as they're hiking. I wouldn't, and no shade to anybody that's doing it. I wouldn't recommend. I would recommend tattoo in the most sterile environment as
Right.
possible. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I've seen other videos where people are tattooing in like parking lots and stuff and
Yeah.
and in
On
the subway.
yeah, that I saw
Yeah.
that
That
video. That
that
was
that's
that was
no, don't
bad.
do that.
No.
Don't do that. That's the
I've
one you could say
I've
definitely don't
I've
do.
seen them all. I've seen, people tattooing on airplanes and all that stuff, and you just want to do it in the most clean
Yeah.
environment possible, just to avoid any other issues.
Yeah. It's like I feel like that's just an issue of just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like
Exactly.
obviously the technology, like you said, is advancing. You don't have these giant machines that you need with stainless steel tubes. You can just have little cartridges, all single use. You throw it out, right?
Nowadays, when I go to do a tattoo, sometimes I could, if I just am feeling like, let's see how it goes, I could lay out 10 different cartridges and decide which one I want to use. And if I only use two of them, then I use two of them. Before, in that same situation, I would have to set up 10 different machines.
Right.
And if I only use two of them, then I'm kicking myself in the ass, because like that's a waste of
Yeah. You have to
materials.
clean that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, like the actual the tools that you use to tattoo have developed. That's definitely a part of technology. What would you say about like the internet, social media? How has that impacted the business in terms of both how you promote yourself and run your business, and how has that impacted the industry? Would you say?
In a lot of different ways, because nowadays people have direct access to their artists. Because if you have an Instagram page as an artist, you can message me, or if it's somebody that's has an assistant, you're pretty much in contact with your artist and you can talk to them.
Right.
So accessibility has made it great, and also exposure, because nowadays you can see what people from all over the world are doing. And even as a tattoo artist, it blows my mind to see what other people are doing, things that I didn't think were possible in tattooing, or just different styles and the
Right.
way different people make different images. It's just crazy.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think just to your point there, it was kind of funny. I remember I was talking to Chris, who owns Addicted to Ink,
Hmm.
and I think he was telling me that originally when they were like starting the shop, they named it Addicted to Ink because like you wanted to be top of the phone book. So the A
Yep.
was part of that because then you're like on the earlier pages, you have like more likelihood of people finding that.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to see like that progression of like
Just
you
in
know,
marketing,
yeah, just
right?
marketing
Yeah.
wise, like you had to get put into a phone book and hope that somebody found your name. Now at the click of a button, you can reach like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people
Yeah.
just with one post. And that could be organic. You can even like put money behind that and market it. But that is definitely something that is an interesting point. Um, and I guess in terms of accessibility, it is nice that you can maybe message back and forth with your client. Um, but at the same time, would you say there is like kind of a barrier, not a barrier, but like a boundary that you have to set there, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes, similar to like, you wouldn't necessarily give out your phone number, but you can't really control who's messaging you and when they're messaging you on, like, let's say Instagram,
hmm
right?
So yeah, that you can also let your clientele or whoever you're communicating know. Uh, you could put a disclaimer maybe in like the first message that they interact, or maybe like an automatic response that says, "I answer my messages between these times and between these days of the week." But yeah, the accessibility now makes people think that their project is the only thing that you're working on.
Right.
So you have to politely just be polite and just explain to them, I could get this ready for you this time. Let me know everything that we want to know now.
Right.
But if you're a chatty person and you just like going back and forth, that's all up to you. Uh, I'm not so much. I
Yeah.
prefer emails over DMs because just like for efficiency for me to like go back to a conversation, sometimes I joke around with my friends on my account. So sometimes
Right.
your
Mm.
DM might get buried and stuff. So
Yeah.
email to me makes it seem like you're a little bit more serious too.
Yeah. It's a little more professional,
Yeah.
and I think the bonus of that is just kind of setting that boundary because, I mean, it's not to say that you can't,
Well, other
you
people
know,
work, they prefer DMs
yeah,
because they say if you want to book an appointment, DM me. So it all depends on the
yeah,
person.
definitely depends on the artist, depends
Yeah.
on the person. And I think, but a part of that is just also, um, it's really just a factor of setting a boundary just because I think people should realize too that artists are people. You have your daily life, and sometimes there's just, people go on social media sometimes just to escape and look at funny videos, and sometimes it can be a little burdensome to, you're just trying to kind of relax, and then you're getting ding ding ding
Yeah,
ding, like, hey, I
it's
need this, I want this,
it's weird. I used to feel like that. I used to feel like, oh man, there's like a couple messages I haven't gotten back to on Instagram. But I want to go on Instagram just to like watch some funny stuff, and I
Right.
feel like I'm gonna be like, oh, that psycho girlfriend. Oh, you
Yeah.
could comment on her picture, but you
Yeah.
can't get back to me, type
Yeah.
shit.
Definitely, yeah, and it's hard, right? Because
Yeah.
that is one of the, I don't want to say it's not a negative, a total negative, but it is one of the things that happens. Your personal life and your professional lives can blend sometimes like that, and something you gotta take control of and manage to the best you can, right?
Yeah, it's like what you just said. You have to take control. Once you set a standard,
Right.
people will tend to follow it.
Right.
And once you break that, that's when that line gets blurred, and then it's on you now because you didn't hold that standard. If
Right.
you don't be afraid of seeming mean or seeming quote unquote bougie
Right. Right.
or whatever other negative term you might think. It's your time and it's your life. And when you go to work, you could check into work and you can answer all those people back, and you can do it
Right.
within a certain amount of time and respect your time because that's a self-respect
Right.
for yourself.
And there's also a respectful way to do it. I feel like you can, if you're communicating clearly and obviously not trying to be rude about it, but you're just setting a standard. You're just saying, hello, like, these are the times that I answer. I'll be happy to answer all your questions at this time or whatever.
Mhm.
However you're stating it, right? So having that clear communication is so important. I think specifically with um, clients, just because it gives them something to think about,
Mhm.
and it makes them kind of know what to expect, and then they're not, um acting in maybe like the incorrect manner or something, then they just didn't know, right? So you're
Yeah,
setting a standard and just informing them of how you operate. And I think there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're being respectful, professional, like all of those things are, there's nothing wrong with that.
definitely not.
Yeah. And talking again, just another point of technology that I found interesting, especially as of late, we've seen a lot of it. Um, is like the introduction and the popularity of AI art.
Of
I think
artificial
so.
art,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, that's just I think it's something that's not going to go away.
Yeah.
I haven't honestly thought about it too much. I've seen a lot of people uh in the very beginning, a few months ago, I saw everybody like using it.
Right.
Artists, non-artists, and
Well, it's
then
so easy. You just type
yeah,
what you want.
and then after that, then the artists were like, "Oh, this is bad." You know what I mean? So,
Right.
uh, there's still artists that use it and are trying it out, and I think that that's just gonna have to be like what the computer was back,
Right.
in the 90s. People said, "Oh, you do computer art or you're not an artist." You know what
Right.
I mean? And
Or like
you
cameras. Like I know photography it used to be a thing. Like oh, you shoot digital. Like that's not you're not
that
shooting on
that
film. Right.
yeah.
So
So there's always a stigma when something new comes out. And I'm not saying that I'm like I said, I really don't have like any
solid.
solid opinions
Yeah.
about it because I haven't tried it. I haven't looked or figured out how to use it, but from what I understand right now, people think that it's just doing it for you. But like you said, I think that you need to learn how to talk to it so that you can get the result that you want.
Right.
And that's an art into itself.
Right. Right.
So,
Communication is definitely an art
yeah,
in certain
so
respects.
it's just like the digital artists nowadays. They're not per se doing a painting in oil and all that stuff, but they're using Procreate or Photoshop or something to do, then they're using digital brushes and digital patterns and this and that, and they're smudging it. So it's still, you have to still have the creativity to do it.
It's a skill set in a sense. It's a
Yeah.
different skill set.
Yeah, it's a different skill set.
I
So I don't know, with AI, it might be, who knows, because first thing I think about AI is I think about dystopian future, because you think your first thing you think about is this is going to get too smart, it's going to get smarter than humans, and then
start taking over.
it's going to take over.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big stigma on it just because I think that a lot of people think that way.
Right. Well, they did just have I think it's Chat GPT 4 came out
I
and
saw a
it's like in the
video.
90th percentile passing the bar exam like over actual law students. It's doing significantly better,
Well, yeah,
which
because
is crazy.
it's computing at such a quicker rate, and it's like, when you have algorithms putting things together so fast
Right.
for you, of course it's like the machine, the computer that beat the chess master,
Right. I,
so I just feel like I don't know, honestly.
yeah. No, well, I mean, I think you are right though in saying, it is technology, it's not going away. People will have to eventually learn how to work with it in a sense. It's kind of like some people have compared it to the calculator, right? So, it's not just because we have calculators doesn't mean we don't have statisticians or mathematicians who do things, right?
Mhm.
Obviously now this is a much more advanced version of what would be a calculator. It's not a one for one comparison. Um, but I think like where a lot of the controversy comes in is I heard or I've read a lot of articles about people talking about how the AI steals from actual artist artwork in order to make these composite images and kind of produce these things. So like, do you have any opinions on that? Like ethically, what do you think about that for a tattoo artist or just an artist in general? Um, like, what do you think about how it formulates those images and how should artists approach using that technology if that's how it's used?
I have no idea how it works, but in a perfect world, maybe if every image that you upload onto the internet for example, was copywritten
Hmm.
or some way, I don't know how possible that would be, because to actually copyright something, you need to register it,
Right.
and that costs you money, and you're not going to register every single thing that you're going to
Right.
upload. So let's say you make a painting and you copyright that and you put it up. Hopefully, maybe there's something worked into the program where it recognizes a copywritten image and doesn't use copywritten images, or has to change it so much.
Yeah, you have to make a significant visual
Yeah,
change.
so much to a degree that it's something totally different. That, yeah, it is looking at what you did, but also artists look at paintings too, and in their intelligence they make something too.
Right. Right.
So this is just another form of looking at something and interpreting something.
That.
But what I think also the bigger fear is that it's going to eliminate artists.
Right.
That's what I think it is the big issues, because now people that don't know anything about art can type in flower or skull, blah blah blah,
Right.
this and that, and it'll spit out 25 images, and then you can choose, and then you have no reason to go to an actual artist for that. But I think you're still going to need artists.
No, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I don't, especially in tattooing, because there's like I've seen some of the like these first generation machines that like supposedly are starting to tattoo people. Like it's an actual machine that tattoos
Uh-huh.
people that and it moves around. But I don't know if people are ever going to trust that. And the other factor of it is when I go to get tattooed, right? Part of that experience is sitting down with somebody and sharing that time in the sense that like you're talking to your artist,
Hmm.
you're asking them about things that they're interested in. They're asking you about things that you're interested in. It's like a personal feel
Yeah.
that I don't think you're going to get. It's an experience that you're not going to get from just computer generated tattoos or art, whatever it is. You don't get that human aspect of it yet.
Definitely not. And with tattooing especially, you definitely need that human aspect to it, because I think it's pretty far from the day that they're gonna make, because your body's not a flat sheet of cardboard
Right.
paper or something that you can perfectly print. You're in the printing business,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
You're even the slight curvature on your arm, like that machine is gonna have to learn how to go around that and still
Amazing.
stretch the skin somehow to get the ink in properly.
Hmm.
So as far as tattooing, I wouldn't be worried about that, but I'm thinking more like artists in general
Hmm.
that do graphic art or fine art or paint or
Right.
of that those type of things.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and how that affects it. I think that's the concern of a lot of industries too, honestly.
Yeah, you're gonna
Even
eliminate a lot of people
yeah,
that do
even
things,
evil,
even
even outside
marketing.
of yeah, even outside of the arts, there's a lot of AI introduction into just very monotonous tasks like accounting. Like I think I heard that they're projecting like in like 10 years or something, there could be no more accountants because it's literally just you could create a AI system that's able to basically just you throw in all your receipts. It's going to automatically read everything and know what to do and know all the write-offs and all your tax code and everything, and it just spits out your tax return. So that
So
would eliminate a whole industry of professional people, not even just creative.
so all right, so let's get a little weird now.
Okay.
So, do you think that all this is going to lead to eventually, if not everybody, most people not having a job or a profession? And then what are we going to do with our time? Is it going to be like the next evolutionary step in our race,
Right.
of our humanity?
Right.
Because what are we going to do then if
Yeah.
we have all this free time?
Well, that's the issue, right? Because
We could either destroy the planet
yeah,
by just driving around and
right.
creating more garbage, or we can do other things with our time.
Right. So I think it's I mean that's a crazy question for anybody. I don't nobody has the exact answer to that for sure. Especially not me. But I think if I was just to like take a wild guess as to what would happen, right? As these industries disappear, You probably will see a lot of consolidation into people into other industries like computer science, people who are going to maintain these machines,
Hmm.
things of that nature. And then you also do have, there'll be some industries that I think you can't take away. I mean, tattooing for one is just like, that's an industry that it revolves around something a little bit more human. I think there will be more promotion of art actually, because if people do have more free time, they have more time to, be a little bit more creative and
Hmm.
maybe hone a skill or develop something. Um, so I think it could either go that way where, essentially the system does all the tasks that we don't want it to do, right? It runs all the businesses and it gets all the products together and all the factories or robots that just do all the work for us, right? And we have more time. So it either goes that way,
Hmm.
or the other option that I would see being like feasible is at a certain point people just go like, this is taking away humanity. Like, um yes, it might be great that people don't have to work, right, anymore, but at the same time, what is an existence without having some sort of goal?
Hmm.
And a lot of people, I think, you know, I'm not saying everybody goes to their, 9 to 5 job and they're like, this is my purpose in life. But for a lot of people, just having a job is their thing. Like that is something that they do. A lot of people do enjoy their jobs. And at a certain point, I think there will be some sort of either movement to kind of conserve older values where people actually work, or some giant progressive push to um just totally have total autonomy with your time and let the machines do everything. But then you run into a lot of other issues like, how well who's making the money? How do you get money? Do you do like a universal basic income thing
Yeah, that's
like
a
Andrew
whole.
Yang was talking about in 2020 or whatever? um or do you do something else? Like there's so many other like factors there in terms of how do you how do people pay? Do people just, is everything free now? Like what do you do?
It's like a whole different program.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
totally different, and it's, I don't know if either of us will ever see like that in our lifetime, but that is
yeah.
interesting to think about, and
Because I
we'll
think that
see.
that's the fear,
Yeah,
because when you go back to the AI thing, it's taking away something that you do. So
right,
now you're worried because now you can't make money. Now your industry is gone.
right.
Um,
It's that transitionary period too, because it's the issue of not only your job is gone, but your job is gone and you still need to pay for things.
exactly.
So it's not, the
So
machine isn't
in the
set up to
beginning, it's
provide.
gonna
Yeah,
it's gonna be real rough
yeah,
until eventually, like dominoes, most of the industries are gone, and
right.
then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we gotta
We just got to
address
have
this.
yeah, it
Yeah,
has to provide for us because otherwise millions are going to die or
yeah,
something like, yeah. That's definitely, yeah, it's a much broader topic. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think anybody has the answer to that, and if they do, I think they're lying to you.
yeah.
But
It's fun
it'll
to think
yeah,
about.
no, it's definitely interesting. I think about that a lot, just like, just randomly, sometimes that pops into my head. But I guess we can go back to more so some of the business stuff that I do want to talk about, that we haven't really touched on yet. Just I want to talk about a little bit more of your personal experiences in business. Um, we kind of talked about some of that balance that you have. What are some of your current goals? I mean, I know we talked about that work life balance, but like, what are some of your current goals, if you have any, in for like business wise, professionally?
So ideally, self sufficiency is what I'm always aiming towards, and that's what I'm always working towards. So just having, I just like to reinvest in my business. Meaning, if I had a good month, or a couple good months, I most likely will get better equipment, or just invest back into my business, either a website, better equipment to take camera. Mostly it's equipment
Yeah,
that goes into what I do technically. Other things were investing in taking the time to get my license to be able to tax, to charge tax, to collect tax. So now I can go and start selling merchandise and do it properly without because an issue when people start doing things as an artist, you're like, oh, I can sell all my stuff.
Right.
But when you're going to sell things, it's better to go through the proper avenues so
Right.
that you don't end up biting yourself in the butt at the end of the day when taxes come and then you got to pay for things that you haven't been setting money aside for.
Right.
So, also investing in things like that, investing in maybe taking some business classes every now and again. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to sign up for like a college course or anything, but sometimes there are seminars online.
Hmm.
There are resources that states provide, for business owners. You just have to research and look into these things, and that's a time investment. But all that stuff pays back, and basically, my goal is to just keep myself afloat and profitable, doing what I like and liking what I do every day, not feeling like this is a drag. I don't want
Right.
to do this.
So just sustaining your lifestyle and just finding happiness in
Yeah.
everything
And
that you do.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. And I think that's like so important too, because I think a lot of people think um, there is kind of like a stigma around business people in general. And I know, like we talked about, you are more of like the artistic type.
Hmm.
Um, but just there's this idea that all business people are they're just strictly out there to make the most money possible, and that's not always the case too. Because there's, especially in small business,
Hmm.
there's a lot of smaller businesses where people are happy. People are content if they can work like 40, 50 hours a week, whatever, maybe even less, who knows, and they can sustain a lifestyle where they're just getting by. They got a nice place to live, and they have a family, or they're doing things that they enjoy. Whatever their purpose is, if they're just able to pursue that, then they're happy with that. It's not always about for everybody. It's not always about like I need to maximize profit and
Hmm.
make as much money as possible because you know
Success is very subjective. Uh, for some people, success would be having a family.
right,
For other people, it would be having a successful business, meaning that it makes a lot of money or it allows them to travel or it allows them to provide for their family. Success for other people might be, just being able to do what you want when you want.
right,
So
right,
it really depends on what you're looking for.
definitely. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of when you were saying you're like reinvesting into learning some of these business things. What would you say is like one mistake that you made, like that you learned from deeply, like just in business, something that was stuck
Ta-
out to you?
taxes,
Taxes. Okay.
taxes for real.
Do your
I
taxes.
Yeah, I do your taxes for real. You always hear people joking about it, but behind every joke there's truth.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you hear a lot of people talking about it, then it must be true. So
Yeah.
you've heard of a lot of celebrities getting in trouble
Hmm.
because of they didn't pay their taxes or they avoided things like that, and it just makes things so much easier for you in the long run whenever you are going to go buy a property. If you think that you want to get a house for yourself, or if you are going to even get a property for a business for yourself, they're going to look into all that stuff. And they're going to look into that background. They're going to see how your financial background is, all that stuff that you don't really think about.
Right.
You can't just pay for cash with cash for everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I have my own gripes about the tax system and
Oh, I
how it
hate
works,
it. I hate it.
but it's a reality,
If
right?
if you think about it, man, like it's like you almost have to give almost half of away of what you're making
Yeah.
if you're an independent contractor.
And it's also the time. The thing that really like annoys me is just the time that it takes that you have to do your taxes. Like you have to sit down, right, and you have to count everything up. And it's just like so bizarre to me because the thing that annoys me the most is it's like
They already
if
know.
imagine you went to like a restaurant or something, right? And you were like, "Okay, I'm ready for the check." And they go, "Okay, what'd you have?" And it's like,
Mhm.
"Well, no, you count up what I have and tell me what I owe you."
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
the other way around, like it's so bizarre that they make you and then you have to pay for an accountant to like go over everything and check it. It's like if you want my money, you should come and tell me what I owe you. And then if I want to double check that and hire somebody, that should be on me. But you should be the first one to say this is what you owe.
Yeah, I think about it that way too. And then I start to think about why it is the way it is because, other people are like, no, I want to check everything and get as much written off as possible and give you as little as possible.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah,
But you can still
it's
check that, right? And you can go back and
well,
forth.
yeah, because that's the thing. Like you said, you have to go get an accountant or do it yourself, possibly fuck up,
Right.
and then they're gonna hit you with like, well, this is wrong. This is
Yeah.
actually what you owe. So if you
And then
knew
yeah, and then
what,
they'll fine you, and then they'll fine you, which is crazy. It's not just like, "Oh, well, you made it," I mean, I'm sure in some cases, obviously, it's warranted if somebody is, like, blatantly avoiding, like, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in taxes, then
Mhm.
sure, maybe a fine is warranted, but, like, some of these people, some of these, stories that I hear of people making, like, 40, 50,000 a year, and then, "Oh, well, you didn't report $1,100 or whatever, so now you owe us, 2,200 because it's doubled because of the
Yeah,
fine," and it's like, if you knew, then why didn't you just tell me that? And also, that's like an innocent mistake at that point, so just there's no leeway at all, it's just like, it's very
it
weird.
is what it is. There, yeah,
But yeah, no, it is, while like I said, while I have my complaints about it, it is a reality, so you do have to pay
yeah.
your taxes, you can't really
You,
escape that.
as an artist, that would be one of the most important things as an independent artist is make sure that you are doing all your legal stuff and business stuff. Because then if you allot your time, if you set your time aside, it might only take you a quarter of your time overall. And then the rest of the time you can start spending it on other things.
Right. So I guess we kind of talked about it earlier, in the sense of you talking about your goals, just having a sustainable lifestyle where you're happy and doing things that you enjoy. What are your thoughts on, like, the current state? I asked this yesterday actually when I was interviewing Dave, but I am interested in this topic to see, like, what people think about it. What are your thoughts on hustle culture, especially promoted in, like, social media today? Like, this idea that you're supposed to go out there all the time and you should be working 18 hours a day, and if you don't work 18 hours a day, then you'll fail. And what are your thoughts on things like that?
Well, there's plenty of people that don't work 18 hours a day and they're doing just fine.
Definitely.
It's about how I'm kind of struggling with the words, I guess. The intent is what matters.
How you spend your time, maybe.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily how much time you spend, but
Not
how
not
you spend your
how
time.
you
If you're
spend your time. Work smarter, not harder is what I'm
exactly.
trying to say. Yeah.
And I think there's a balance to that too, because I see that all the time where people are like, I work 16 hours a day, but I also, like, I'm sure if I sat down and watched you work, you're not working the full 16 hours. You're doing some work here, you're sending a couple emails, and then maybe you start scrolling on social media, blah, 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 and you're not accounting for that, right?
Hmm.
So those things specifically, when I hear people say that, it kind of frustrates me because it's like, what's the quality of your work, right? I'd rather, for me personally, I'm all for hard work, and, like, you definitely need to work to succeed, especially in the current state of everything. Like, you need to put in a certain number of hours, right? But more importantly, you need to make sure that you're working efficiently with your time. When you go to sit down and you work, you're going to go, I'm going to work from this time to this time, and I'm going to do this task,
Hmm.
right? And that's what you do there. And if you can work efficiently, and you're objective oriented, you're working towards a goal, and you're achieving those goals, then that's what's more important than necessarily just putting up a random number of hours that you were, like, in the office, or however you want to put it.
Well, you could put it this way, right? Let's say you have two people that don't know how to draw, right? Or that they're artists, inside.
Hmm.
At their heart, they're artists, and they want to be a better artist, right? And you have one of them is just doing it. He's drawing every single day, 10 hours a day, but he's just doing it based off what he thinks he's supposed to be doing,
Right.
right? And then you have the other artist that is working at it 3 or 4 hours a day. But this artist is going to the library, reading up on technical books on drawing, and things of that nature, and drawing theories and things like that, and then he's applying it. So he's spending 2 hours studying and reading, and then 2 hours drawing. So this person's only doing like a fifth of what the other person is.
Right.
I think that that second artist is gonna get better results after 3 months of doing the same thing,
Right.
because the one artist has no reference, so he's working hard, but it's like you're working hard but you're doing the wrong thing every single day. It's
Yeah.
like and to relate it to something else, it's like somebody that goes to the gym every single day and they're doing the wrong exercises.
Right.
Their body's not gonna develop the way that they want, in comparison to somebody that goes and targets doing this day, this day, this day,
Right. Right.
and they develop differently.
Well, I think a part of that is also just being realistic with yourself and being able to critique your work too. Because, like in that first example that you're talking about, if that artist is just sitting there and drawing all the time, and they're like, and they just do their drawing, and they're like, "Yep, that's good,"
Hmm.
there's no critique there. Versus, maybe the artist who was studying is not only studying, but they're specifically looking into a skill set or some sort of theory that they're not well versed in, right? So
Exactly,
you're
they're
the
learning.
the the real objective there, from what I'm like understanding from what you're saying, is to work in a manner that allows you to identify your weakness
Hmm.
and actually take steps to fix it or to get better, to
Yeah,
improve it,
yeah.
right? And that's really the goal. So I think, like, um when I initially brought up the idea of like hustle culture and everything to you, that's like kind of my idea. Where, again, I'm not by any means opposed to people working hard, going to the gym, having good routines, all of that. But there's a balance where you need to be realistic with yourself and be uh, not critical, but you be able to, criticize your work
Hmm.
and determine where you need to improve. That's how you get the real improvement in your business and whatever you're really trying to do at that point.
Yeah, yeah, you have to
Definitely.
be critical for sure,
Yeah.
and not think that just because you show up every day, that's a very
Yeah.
important part of it, but you
It's not
also
all of
have
it.
to
Yeah.
just, you could show up and fall asleep every day.
Yeah. You got to show up and you have to actually do something to
Yeah, so
further
that,
yourself.
and going back to that hustle culture thing, if let's say you're just hustling all the time, you're gonna burn yourself out.
Right.
I've experienced burnout before, and trust me, no matter who you are, you need to unplug, you need to reset, and your work gets better
Yeah.
after doing that.
That's definitely a good point too. Something I didn't even bring up before, but yeah, if you're doing like that 16-hour workday or whatever, by the time you get to like hour 10, 11, or 12, your quality of your work is starting to decline. Even if you are working hard
Hmm.
at that point, there is like it's a point of diminishing returns after a while, where
Yeah,
like every hour you work from there is just not really, it's not the quality that you should be working at. It's better to, like you
just
said,
stop.
just
Yeah.
stop, get some rest or relax, do what you need to do to recharge, and then you go back at that the next day, or even, if you want to just take a break and then go back at it a few hours later. But
Hmm.
having that break is important, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So last thing I want to talk about, we talked about it a little bit earlier again,
Mhm.
but I just want to get into it in a little more in detail. Your like 10-year vision. So like, if it was up to you, in 10 years, you have no obstacles, no, financial, personal life, none of that gets in the way, and you can just do exactly what you would like to do in 10 years. What would that be? Like, what would you be doing in 10 years?
In 10 years, ideally, I would be painting for, I would say about half my time would be painting, and the other half would be tattooing.
Okay.
Or even possibly, I'm saying that now because I'm respecting tattooing, but I've been tattooing for a while, and I would like to do something else, but I never want to give up tattooing.
Right.
And that seems a little selfish, but I feel like I have given a lot of myself to tattooing. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's good to try different things, and it's good to maybe step back a little bit. Like I said, I'm not saying that that's going to happen anytime soon, but in the future, I'm no spring chicken. I'm
Yeah.
I'm 38 years old, so in 10
It's still
years,
relatively young.
it's the new 30. I would say it's the new 30s.
Yeah.
But I would be 48 years old in 10 years.
Right.
So I'm definitely gonna want to do things at a different pace.
Right.
So I would definitely like to paint more and be more of a painter or a graphic artist or something like that. And the only reason for that is because I love tattooing and I love the feel of tattooing. So I'd never want to give that up. But with tattooing, you are doing something for someone.
Right.
And a lot of times my vision does get changed to suit the client's needs.
Right.
And with your own artwork, you have free reign.
Right. And they're
And
walking away with that piece too, right? You'll never see it again. Or I mean, maybe you will, but
that doesn't really concern
no.
me as much that they walk away with it, because if you're planning out all your tattoos, you still have that artwork. You
Right. Right.
know,
I guess yeah. That's
if
fair.
you're like setting things up and making stencils and all that stuff, you still
Definitely.
have that artwork that you can always keep for yourself. But um, for me, it's just more of the freedom of, I like that, but just change that a little bit. And the reason I did that the way that I did it was because that's how it comes out of me naturally.
Okay.
And it would be great to just be able to do that and be able to live off of that.
Definitely. Yeah. That's interesting. So would you want to like have a studio, your own studio where you paint, like a public studio where people can view it, or you would just like you would do your paintings in like a private studio and then maybe share them at art shows and things of that nature?
Maybe something like that. Um, yeah, maybe something like that. I keep thinking also about like commercial art, which
Okay.
is kind of like similar to what the tattooing issue is, where
Right.
you're doing something for someone else. But I think that when people are searching you out as a commercial artist, they're kind of trusting your artistic vision a little bit more, and it's a little bit less demanding, I feel.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I think a little bit more towards graphic art.
Cool. Yeah, well, I can't wait to see how that
Oh,
turns out.
and I'm sorry, and to go back to to answer your question, right now I'm basically doing it how I would do it.
You'd like to do it.
Yeah, because I have my own art studio at home.
Okay.
I'm lucky enough that one of my bedrooms is just my art studio, and I have all sorts of supplies there. So it's all about just the dedication that I put into it.
Right.
Sometimes, like right now, I paint when I want to. I paint the things that I want to, but it's kind of like sporadic. I do probably, I would say, about five or so paintings a year. Because I'm also balancing work. But if I were to focus on it more, I think that I can get more into it and be more productive. And now I have the time to do it. So I've been working